We're getting to the big boys. Some of these massive awards for big companies doing big things in 2020. What are we doing first here? Best Publisher of 2020. What you got?
Wow.
Got some big boys this year.
Yeah, I don't know. It was a good year for a few publishers in particular. I feel like PlayStation had some big wins, and I feel like Nintendo had some big wins as well. I don't know if it counts. Does Nintendo count as a publisher if they're making their own?
Yes, of
They're
course.
the developer as
Definitely.
Yeah, they're self-publishing, so yes, they do count. But I think this was
They've
actually a
won this
lackluster
before.
year for Nintendo compared to other years.
Yeah, they've won this
That's
before,
true.
and I don't think they should win this year.
No, I don't think they even hold a candle to Xbox or PlayStation this year.
Are we
Really?
considering games that these publishers have announced as coming, or just things that they've
no.
released?
I would say stuff they released.
Stuff that they
Okay.
published this
Published
year.
this year.
Right.
I mean, like,
okay.
it's-
And even by that criteria, PlayStation has such a heavy hitters lineup between Last of Us, between Ghost of Tsushima, between Spider-Man, between is Demon's Souls first party or no? I don't remember.
No,
Demon's Souls.
it's weird. They have the publishing rights.
Yes.
So
Oh,
yeah,
really?
yeah, that's
And even like the lesser stuff like Dreams, like they've done amazing work this year.
yeah,
yeah.
Don't forget Bug Snacks. Also,
I don't think they publish Bugsnax.
No, Bugsnax is indie.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, PlayStation had a great year. Then Xbox Game Studios, I mean, they published Microsoft Flight Simulator, Tell Me Why, Age of Empires,
Ori.
Gears Tactics,
Tetris
Wasteland
Connected.
3,
Tetris Effect Connected,
Grounded
and then
Units, Early
all
Access.
of the Game Pass stuff.
Yeah,
Just everything they've done, getting stuff onto Game Pass is really damn
Yeah.
impressive.
That was why I was asking, like, are we looking at what the publishers have done as a whole? Because Xbox has made a lot of acquisitions on behalf of Xbox
Mhm.
Game Studios.
Yeah, I think that's going to help them down the road, Sam. Like when Everwild launches or when we get a new Bethesda game, or
Yeah.
I don't know who else did they acquire? Playground? But yeah, like when
Yeah.
we get the Fable game, like I think
Yeah.
Microsoft has set themselves up to win this award in the future more than they have to win it this year. I think Sony, you just look at our best PS4 category. Those are three really. I guess technically Final Fantasy VII wasn't published by them, but yeah, Ghost of Tsushima. You got The Last of Us Part 2. You got Dreams, and then on PS5 with Demon's Souls, the cross-platform launch of Miles Morales. It's
Sackboy, Astro's Playroom.
yeah, there's a lot there for PlayStation this year. I'm
Yeah.
really damn impressed by them.
And even if we're looking at the Game Pass metric, PlayStation, they still have PlayStation Now, but also to get people into PS5, they're just like, hey, did you miss out on the PS4 generation? If you have PlayStation Plus, here's a bunch of games.
Mhm.
He's like 20 games from the PS4 era that are all awesome.
Yeah, it was 19 great games and Fallout 4.
Oof.
But
I
and I mean they are the only of the two companies that put out next gen consoles this year. They're the only one that actually had games at launch. I think you gotta consider that too. Like not only what Sony did with the PS4 this year, but them actually having some sustenance for you when the
Games
PS5 launched.
I love how
Games
bad
that
this launch is that we're like, they had a game.
What
They
you
had,
mean
they had the
Demon's
best
Souls
12
and
gigabyte
Astrobot?
game that everyone immediately deleted to make room on the tiny hard drive.
It
Yeah,
was
because I
like-
mean, if you're talking about games at launch, yeah, Xbox Game Pass has literally hundreds and hundreds of games.
you
They
could have
didn't
already
publish all
played
those.
on an Xbox One or on
Yeah,
a
and you could have already played those games that they gave you on PlayStation, like Bloodborne and
Mhm.
the other
And
19
Demon's
and Fallout.
Souls.
So
10
if
years
we're
ago.
making the argument for that for PlayStation, we also have to make that for Xbox.
But they actually had something next gen at launch. That's what I was
Demon's
saying.
Souls, yeah,
Yeah. Well,
yeah, for
and
sure.
Artificially
And yeah,
next gen.
Demon's Souls.
Yeah, they had a game
for
that
sure.
you literally can't play anywhere else. So from a publisher perspective, it's next gen. Chris's point, it's not that impressive graphically. I get that, but it is it's the only way to play it is on PS5.
And as great as the juggernauts are, and this is probably going to be a two-horse race by the end of this, we should definitely give some honorable mentions to some of the other game publishers out there, including Devolver Digital, which we just talked about their online presentation, but they also had a lot of games come out this year as well. Fall Guys, Serious Sam, Disc Room, Carrion, Exit the Gungeon on Switch. Like, they had a lot of good games come out this year, and the high quality that they keep churning out under the radar, I would say, like, they're such a consistent hit. Like, I love Devolver so much, and I hope they keep bringing that kind of energy next year.
I'm gonna go out on a limb here and argue for a publisher I think actually handled the entire year better than Sony or Xbox. I'm gonna argue for Square Enix. Like, top of the list, Final Fantasy VII Remake. They finally moved it this year. It was excellent. It's been in a lot of our conversations today. So putting like the obvious aside, I've been impressed with Square Enix inside and outside of their like game efforts. Like, they've been moving a lot of good stuff when it comes to Final Fantasy XIV. They've been doing stuff with Outriders is one of my more anticipated games of next year.
We talked about Trials of Mana as most overlooked.
Trials of Mana was an incredible overlooked game that I think deserves way more attention than it got. They did crossover content with Nier Automata and Final Fantasy XIV. But like outside of games, they also did like some really great stuff, like that set a trend for a lot of other publishers this year. When COVID became a serious matter, Square Enix was one of the first publishers to say, this is unsafe. We can't be a part of physical events. We need to look after our own. We need to pack it in. There will be better times. And that was when they were trying to market Final Fantasy VII. That was a big risk for them to pull back from PAX.
Yeah.
And despite that, they were like, no, this is a big deal. This is COVID. Like, this is becoming a problem. We can't risk the health of our staff.
And they also released Octopath Traveler on Stadia this year.
Mm-hmm.
Why?
But like,
why?
I'm just saying, you want
Now
more
maybe I'll
feathers in
finally
a
get a
cap.
chance.
You want more feathers in the cap for a publisher.
That's true.
Putting Octopath, like, I know
true,
people
you're right.
make fun of Stadia a lot. Turn-based video games are perfect for Stadia. It's like the perfect kind of game to be on Stadia.
yeah, I would agree with that actually. Like, Octopath Traveler, a game where you don't have to worry about latency, is a good game for Stadia.
Yep.
But like then like there was they hit me right in the feels earlier this year with like support for LGBTQ communities, which Square Enix always does show support for the LGBTQ community. But like it hit hard this year in Pride Month, where like it was a tough one this year. And then more recently, they decided to extend their work from home policies infinitely, which I feel is going to be a trendsetter for a lot of publishers to like realize that there are ways to go about things and make things safer and make better practices for your employees that might actually benefit not just like business, but like the people working for you. So like, I don't know. PlayStation moved, Xbox moved, but like as far as like inside and outside of gaming, I feel like Square Enix was like the one that impressed me most throughout the entire year.
I wish people would look at that side for Square Enix, because when people look at Square Enix this year, they're going to think of Marvel's Avengers, and they're going to think of that player count, and that can't be seen as anything other than a substantial failure.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I don't think it's anything that Square Enix did wrong. It just, like, it wasn't a game that
The
caught
Crystal
on.
Dynamics wanted to make it a Diablo game. I
But-
mean, I felt like a financial decision to make it a constant live service game.
But a pro for Square Enix, I will say, they released an optimization patch for Final Fantasy IV. Like, in 2020!
Yeah.
How cool is that?
Very. Is that more of a developer thing, though?
I'm sure that
A
they
little
had
bit of both, yeah.
a little bit of both.
Column A and B.
Chris, I know you had another entity that you wanted to shout out in this category.
Yeah, I'd like to nominate Coffee Stain Publishing. They're not a big outlet, and I don't even think they're a publisher anymore, as they were just acquired by Koch Media under the Embracer Group or whatever they're called now. But prior to this, they were in charge of publishing some absolute bangers. Games I've nominated in other categories this year, specifically Hunt Down, the side-scrolling game I love, Satisfactory, and Deep Rock Galactic.
All solid releases.
The same arguments I guess are made for Devolver. I would add to Coffee Stain.
Mhm.
Just their eye for hot stuff has been strong.
Yeah, Devolver really has a solid track record of that though for years now. It's
Yeah.
they rarely miss, and when they hit, they get these massive hits like Fall Guys, you know. So, or I don't know, like the Hotline Miami series in the past. You know, like Devolver just they seem. I think it goes up to the top of the company. I think Mike has a really good taste in games, and it kind of his whole team does.
Not only that, but he's like a genuine, like he's like a person. Like I've interviewed him, or
Mhm.
John's interviewed him twice, and he's just like, I can sit down and have a beer with him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and just make casual talk. And I can't think of a lot of like companies that have that much money and involvement that are that relatable. You know what I mean? Like,
And going
wear
back
t-shirt
to
and
like
sandals, you know?
yeah, going back to our online presentation discussion, Devolver's always had this attitude that they're like the outsiders. You know, they're not part of the ESA. They were never in the convention center at E3.
They're like us. I
Yeah.
consider us to be the outsiders of like, you know, of what we do.
Yeah, for sure. Like we're on the fringe and we're kind of indie, and so are they. And I always appreciate that about them. And you look at the list of games that they published this year, and they're all over the place, but they're all really good. Like Disc Room is excellent. Carrion is really good.
And they had a really good 2019 too. I didn't think they were
Yeah.
going to be able to follow up on that. Like
Yeah.
2019, they had Katana Zero. They had My Friend Pedro. They had they had Ape Out. Ape Out was really good.
Yep.
So that they were able to follow up on 2020 gives me a good feeling about their 2021, where they're going to release Shadow Warrior 3, among other games, hopefully.
Yeah, but no, I think they definitely deserve some love. Yeah, I'm gonna do the opposite of nominate Nintendo. I'm gonna say Nintendo should not be nominated for this year. I think they've done a pretty whack-ass job in 2020.
I wouldn't say they had a bad year, but like it's a bad year by their standards.
Yeah,
And-
I'm just saying
and-
by Switch standards, this has been a pretty mediocre year for them.
And we can say it's because of COVID, but look at how all these other publishers have rolled with COVID. And
I don't think it's. I think it has something. I personally think that we would have seen a different Nintendo this year without the virus. I think we would have seen a Nintendo that had a Super Nintendo World tie-in game. You know, like that seems like an amusement park that would have a tie-in game, similar to what Nintendo Land was for Wii U. And that was taken away from us. It's like, I feel like at some point this year, Nintendo realized that they had to tear up their entire 2020 game plan, and they just said, screw it. We're going to push out all of our updates in April. We're going to just close up shop until the fall, and then we'll release.
Also, if they're releasing shit and saying that you only have 6 months to get it, fuck that. We're not rewarding that.
Yeah, exactly. What they're doing with Mario 35, what they've done with 3D All-Stars.
What they're doing with Fire Emblem.
Yeah, what they're doing with Fire Emblem, what they're doing with and I know it's Mario's 35th anniversary and all that, but Mario's 35th anniversary is in the year 2020, and all of these timed exclusives happen to carry over until March of next year, which is what? It's the end of their fiscal year. So it just shows you, like, I don't know. They've almost... They're really feeling themselves. You can tell it. Like, you know, how Nintendo acts when they're humble versus Nintendo when they're, like, kind of full of themselves. Nintendo's kind of full of themselves right now. And they should be. I mean, Animal Crossing sold more freaking units than anyone ever thought it would. But it's one of those successes that they've been able to coast on. And then they've had the tailwind of COVID-19 causing demand, like creating demand for Switch. So there was no incentive to really push the Switch as a hardware device. You know, like we're not going to see a Switch Pro this year. Probably not going to see it until late next year if we do. But yeah, no, there's no to me, this was a very lackluster year for Nintendo. And when you compare it to what Sony did and what Microsoft did, I don't think they even hold a candle to either of them this year, which is saying something. I think that in a different universe, without COVID-19, Nintendo might have had a better year, is all I'm kind of saying. But I think they were most affected by this from the big three perspective. But yeah, should we vote?
Yep.
Okay.
I'll kick it off. I'll say PlayStation.
Ozzy is on PlayStation. David had voted for Xbox.
Follow suit with David and go Xbox.
I'm
On the
going to
Xbox.
rightfully cancel Sam's vote with the PlayStation.
Of course, I'm going with PlayStation. Ghost of Tsushima is my favorite game of the year, so I gotta give it up to Sony. They really did a lot of cool stuff this year.
Chris.
I'm gonna stick with Coffee Stain.
DJ?
Standing by Squeenix.
I like that. That was an interesting nomination. I hadn't really thought of them, but when we were talking about PlayStation, I was thinking about Final Fantasy in my head, but I was like, oh yeah, that's Square. Donovan.
This is close for me, but I'm gonna go PlayStation Studios.
Josh.
So it I think we need to give an honorable mention to Deep Silver. We kind of left them out.
Okay.
They published Maneater and Wasteland 3.
Mhm.
And several other games this year, so I think they deserve a shout out, obviously.
Didn't
but
they get
as far
acquired
as-
by Coke also?
Yeah, they got acquired by Coke at the end of last year, I think.
Oh, did they?
Yeah.
Well, stuff still
Remember-
publishes as Deep Silver. So
Maybe
Yeah,
we
I
should have nominated Coke.
Yeah,
I
maybe
guess
we
so.
should just
Add it in
nominate
the
Coke
comments.
Media for best publisher because they own all these other ones. we're nominating.
I guess so. Anyways, but yeah, no, I think I got to stand with Chris on Coffee Stain. They put out some really great stuff before they were acquired.
Yeah, they really did. Most impressive.
Oh
Steve.
no, I looked it
I'll
up
go
on
with
Wikipedia.
PlayStation.
Wait, what happened, Chris?
I apologize, I didn't mean to interrupt.
That's good. PlayStation for me.
PlayStation for Steve.
I looked
Greg.
up on Wikipedia to be sure, and it looks like Coffee Stain was actually acquired at the end of 2019 by Coke Media.
Oh no.
I had it wrong.
So
Coke is
all right,
going
well, then-
crazy.
So we're replacing your nomination with Coke Media.
Yeah, I think that works.
I know TJ made a lot of good points for Square, and I want to vote for them, but I have a feeling that's going to be the odd man out, so I'm going to have to go with my boy Xbox because they actually like us.
Your boy Xbox for what? Just for fucking pandering reasons?
No, for publishing reasons. I think that the Xbox gets shafted because it gets shadowed by Miles Morales and all these first title story exclusives and stuff like that. I think they need to be recognized for the publishing work that they do with all their studios.
I think Xbox does really good work on the
They've
Game
done-
Pass side.
If you see Xbox Game Studios, they've had some pretty quality games this year. They've had some shit games this year, but they've had some quality games this year.
And also TJ, like, I can't vote for either Sony or Square Enix just because of the fucking Spider-Man exclusivity bullshit on Avengers. I think is a terrible decision.
That wasn't
How dare
Squeenix,
you with
was
your
it?
protest vote?
That had nothing to do with Squeenix, I don't think.
That had to be PlayStation.
It had to. I mean, I'm sure Square wanted to go
It's
to every
Sony.
console, right?
Sony's like, we own Spooderman
Yeah.
forever.
Wait. Yeah, I was gonna say, didn't like Insomniac Games make Spider-Man?
Yes.
Which is owned by
No,
Sony.
this is for Spider-Man, the DLC for Avengers. Like they've. I thought they
Yeah,
were.
that's sort
Oh,
of.
that's
I'm
also
talking about-
PC, Xbox, and PS4 all get their own exclusive characters, but that wasn't the case. The only exclusive character is Spider-Man, and it's only on PlayStation.
Yeah,
And I was
well,
like,
you know
that's
that's what
definitely a
happens
Sony
when
thing.
that's what
That
happens when
sucks.
Sony owns licenses to Marvel properties. So
yeah,
the only
Yeah.
Marvel property they own.
yeah.
yeah.
Like, all I'm hearing is that the misses that Sony had, or Squeenix had this year, were entirely Squeenix's fault. So, their misses were substantially less to me than the good they did throughout the year.
Well, I'm looking at the votes. My vote doesn't matter. So I don't know who to vote for. I think I'll vote for PlayStation. I think I'm pretty damn impressed with their first parties. I think it's The Last of Us Part 2, Ghost of Tsushima, what they did with Astro, what they've done with whatever the hell the Little Big Planet game was called. Was that on PS5 only?
Yes. No, I think Sackboy's on PS4.
It's cross, like what they're doing with the cross-release stuff, Demon Souls. I think it's like I said while we were deliberating here. I feel like Xbox has set themselves up to win this category in the future, but there just wasn't enough this year.
The meta is real.
I also know there's a history of Microsoft acquiring things and then ruining them. Skype. And Skype wasn't even good before they acquired it. Hotmail. But
you're gonna see a lot of people.
Rare. Look at what they did to Rare for almost a decade before we got Sea of Thieves.
If they ruin Bethesda, you're gonna see a lot of people going, Bethesda was already ruined before Microsoft.
I get you. I mean, but you can't That's why I don't want to reward them for acquiring stuff. I want to see the results.
No, we're just weighing these as purely as a first party studio.
Yeah. But and as a publisher. But yeah, I think Microsoft has a lot of good stuff they should be proud of this year. But I really think that on the whole, the biggest games to be released this year were published by Sony.
I loved Ori, but I also hated Battletoads. So
there you go. That's the yin and yang I'm talking about, and I'm glad you brought up a Rare IP that is just. Battletoads was never good.
You could play it on Game Pass, and if you didn't like it, you just move on.
Yes, Game Pass is great, Greg. I love Game Pass, but it's not. I don't love it enough to say that it's better than Spooderman this year.
Okay.
I love me some Spooderman, man. It's really good.
That's fair.
So yeah, with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 votes, we have a winner. The best publisher of 2020 here at Shacknews is PlayStation Studios. Congratulations.
What am I gonna do with the award? Nothing. I don't know what I'm gonna do. That's the least of my concerns right now.